We began development on the game that's now known as Smite way back in December of 2010. It was originally designed to be a game mode for Global Agenda, our science fiction third-person shooter. The original pitch was, let's take some of the things that are fun about tower defense games and put that into the Global Agenda universe.
I converted one of the maps into a MOBA style thing. I created minions out of the Android responders that were sort of one of the common minion enemies in Global Agenda, and gave them an AI that was kind of similar to MOBA style bots. And instead of giant towers, we literally used turrets from the game and scaled them up real big and placed them along the lanes, and that was sort of the obstacles along the way.
The game became really fun to play, so much so that we thought, instead of a game mode for Global Agenda, this could be a game that stands on its own. But there were two issues that we debated a lot as a team. Jetpacks allow complete freedom of movement. That was really fun, but also kind of broke some of the pacing that you'd expect in a tower defense or really a lane-based game. The second was the weapons themselves. There were weapons like sniper rifles in the game, and if I can shoot you from that far away, again, that kind of broke some of the pacing in that sort of game. So we started thinking about a fantasy setting instead of science fiction. That's when Erez, who's our CEO and really chief designer, came up with the idea of gods and goddesses from mythology. At that point, the team shifted from Global Agenda to gods and goddesses, and in February, we moved from the working title Battleground of the Gods to the name Smite, which the team liked and is stuck to this day.
When we went into pre-production on the actual game Smite, we asked the artists to create a lot of different concepts, using a lot of freedom to come up with their own ideas and their own takes of what the art style would be. Two examples were, we had everyone model Freya, and we had everyone model Zeus. When we came back together and reviewed all those, it was really the beginning stages of deciding what the theme of the game would look like, and the art style would kind of develop from those concepts.
Some of the bigger well-known gods like Zeus, it's very easy for us to find how to approach it. It's fairly consistent lore. Some of the little bit lesser known ones, such as Neith, depending on which part of Egypt you're looking at, Neith might have been worshipped for being a weaver. In another part of Egypt, at a different time period, she was worshipped for being a hunter. And so when we go through our design process on some of them, we get to really pick the parts of the lore that we think will bring about the best gameplay or the most fun for our players.
I remember when we were first playing in alpha, and it was just friends and family, and there were maybe 20 people online every night, and we were just trying to get a match going every time. And we opened that up when we went into a closed beta where we invited more players, and that first time that you start a match and you don't know anybody in the queue, you don't know anybody in your game, that is the most exciting time for me as far as game development is concerned. It's the first time people are choosing to play the game that you created on their own. When we first showed Smite externally was in PAX Prime in September of 2011 and in PAX East in May of 2012. The first time that we brought the game to those shows and we saw people playing for the first time was really exciting. It's like a validation of all the work that you've put into the game that's taken several years to accomplish.
Over the past year, the character team has made improvements to over 10 gods, and we have our eyes on improving more. Odin was one of our earliest models, and while researching him, we found a lot of historical depictions that were showed him as a Gandalf-like character, and we didn't really think that that would fit into Smite very well. So we asked ourselves, what would he wear to battle or to hunting? And that's how we came to the leather and fur-based version that was in the game originally. The idea behind the redesign was to make him more godly and regal and impressive. And to do that, we added finer clothing and shiny metals. And the elements of hanging cloth and the strong metal shoulder mantle give him this quality of a religious figure. With Sun Wukong, we received a lot of feedback from our friends at Tencent. A major problem was that we went with much more historical depiction than the modern versions which are shown in movies and games today. Now, Sun Wukong is the badass he's supposed to be. He has heroic proportions and his general presentation is more confident and serious. Like with Odin, there's a higher attention to detail, better realism in materials, and more connection to his lore. Overall, he fits his role as a warrior much better.
When we started to rework the environment art for Smite, one thing we really wanted to push up was the fidelity. And that doesn't mean necessarily better art, that just means tighter pixel density. So something as simple as the resolution of the ground is a huge thing. With Conquest, we wanted to improve readability, so things like trees are much more lush, towers have much more detail to them, and the bases and bosses are vastly improved. With Assault, we pushed much heavier into fantasy. We knew that we had a lot of visual freedom because it takes place in Asgard. We depicted the Battle of Ragnarok. The ground is the biggest one, but anything that's on player level has a lot more resolution than it did before.
One of the things we have the most fun with in Smite is the humor elements, and at its base level, Smite is not a humorous game, and it started kind of with the victory defeat animations. We started kind of cautious, started getting goofier, started getting pop culture references in, and we found that that was okay. So we started running with that. And then we had the Cyclops, who, and just in one of these scenes, we kind of snuck them in the background, saw if anyone noticed. And then it just became every chance we had, if we needed somebody to be funny, someone to get bashed on the head, someone to get set on fire, it was the Cyclops.
The challenge for effects in Smite is around mixing the aesthetics of the god and the theme of the god with the gameplay requirements of the god. Developing a better feel for, what makes Thor Thor and how you can convey the coolness of his awesome lightning abilities and still tell the player exactly what they're doing, when they're going to take damage, how big the area is going to be. So it's just a bridge between information conveyance and coolness.
We build games, we don't build technology, right? But we've had to build technology to build our games. Kali's one of our first characters, but we remade her, right? So one of her attacks does an intersection. It comes from two directions. So that's a bi-directional thing that we had to write new code for. Tyr's charge, where he knocks player up, and then if he's in the air, he gets knocked up more. Those are all progression attacks that we didn't really have tech to do, but we wanted to make sure that each character was very unique.
When we set out to write the Spectator Support into Smite, the Unreal Engine provides a pretty basic framework for watching demos, but that was all for pre-recorded matches. And so our requirement really needed to be to watch live matches and semi-live matches with a delay. As we grew the esports scene in Smite and got more and more people watching and the Spectator Support matured, we discovered that we needed to add additional features that gave data that is not directly exposed to the players. And so an example of that would be the XP and the gold graphs that we show in the game. And we have all sorts of stats that we want to show in the future.
All of this has been a kind of push to make Smite as an esport something that's really enjoyable and unique. That has led us to running LAN events at trade shows is really where we started out, PAX being the one that you look at as where we got our start, and that's transitioned into events around the world like Gamescom, a LAN in Shanghai as well. And now we're bringing it all home to our backyard here in Atlanta, where it'll be the top teams around the world competing for their share of $175,000 and more as the prize pool continues to grow to celebrate the launch of Smite and hopefully the first step towards a continued growth of esports.